This is Canada West Foundation contracted Ipsos Reid polling firm to do a poll about, what are the perceptions of different industries. And this is really Ontario and the Western provinces, so this is not a global audience that he's saying this. This was 2 years ago. So if you look at this, how did the respondents, there were about, 4,000 respondents, and, it was a professional polling firm, so I think it was pretty decently done study or survey. So energy, which is oil and gas and electricity generation, that's all that's included in that, is amongst, well, there's others, but if you look at farming or forestry, and you should have seen the figures for tourism. Tourism, everybody trusted and loved tourism, but energy is generally not well trusted. There's more distrust, and people are less neutral about it. So why? The survey said, well, because energy companies are motivated solely by financial gains. So you can't trust them because they're seeking profits. And they lack social responsibility, which is the theme for tonight, and environmental sustainability. So those were the reasons what the survey respondents were giving for that. And then, of course, there were people who also trust energy industry or energy companies, and it's the economic benefits it provides. And I think everybody in Calgary, in Alberta, at least realizes that there are definitely those there as well. So now the question is, should energy companies be concerned about this mistrust, this kind of public perception, that you're just after money, and you don't care about anything else, and that's all that. I would say yes and no. Mostly no, but I'm going to say yes as well. Yes, because for the energy companies to be able to do the good work that they do, the creation of energy that we all need, they need the freedom to do that. And if they are not trusted by investors, by clients, by employees, by regulators, it's going to be harder for them. So they should be somewhat concerned. But at the same time, I'm also going to argue no, because they are already making such a huge contribution that is good, and they're doing that by maximizing profits. So my argument is that the profit motive maximizes human welfare. And when I say profit motive, this is not profit, short-term profit at any cost. It's long-term profit, which you cannot make unless you create value for people. It cannot be just money for your shareholders, because if you don't create value for your customers, it's not going to happen. So I'm using energy companies now as an example. So if we have more affordable, reliable, and abundant energy, which in this case we're talking about is fossil fuels, there's more human flourishing. It's going to be good for everybody if they concentrate doing that. This is life expectancy is up in those countries that have been able to get cheap and affordable energy, like developing world, China, India, and all that. GDP per person has gone up once they get this energy that we take for granted. Here, there's less air pollution, despite the increase of the use of energy, particularly fossil fuels. The quality of the air pollution has gone down significantly because of the technology. There's more clean water available because there's energy that can be used to get that. And there's fewer climate-related deaths. Imagine places where you don't have energy, affordable, cheap energy, trying to rescue people when you have environmental, there's a tsunami or there's an earthquake or whatever. It's a lot harder for people to survive these kinds of disasters in Haiti than it is, let's say, in Japan. Okay, so that really brings us to the question, what is the proper role of business? Is it to engage in social projects or environmental projects, or is it to concentrate on doing what really, and I would say economists would argue the same thing. The role of business in society is to produce and trade material values, goods and services. That is what they do the best. That's what they should do. And what is the driver for that? Well, you are doing it because you want to create wealth for your owners, and you have to do it really well in order to be able to do that. So if you're competition, it's going to happen. And whatever, this again in the context of energy, for instance, it's a tremendous value for all of us. I mean, think about healthcare. We couldn't have that if we didn't have the energy. Like, you're trying to do a brain surgery, if the power goes out, it's going to be very, very hard. Construction of all the shelter and buildings that we have, or air travel, or any kind of travel without pedaling yourself, depends on energy, or food production. All the products depends on it. So this is a tremendous value that comes from energy companies, and I would argue that this is what they should be focusing on. And when I say profit maximization, again, I mean it doesn't mean preying and exploiting, preying on others and exploiting somebody. It is creating value. That's the only way that we can make profits on the long term. So I don't have to talk about Milton Friedman because Mike, I want to do that. But so Milton Friedman, more than 40 years ago, he said this: social responsibility of businesses to maximize profits. And I'm arguing, and I agree with Milton Friedman on that. I don't agree on everything with him. And very important point, this is again within the ethical and legal norms of society. This is not again committing frauds, initiating force against others. It's maximizing profits that way. So I'm arguing, and why is this an invalid concept? Well, first of all, if you think about it, well, social responsibility. So responsibility to society. So what is society? Society is everybody within the society. So what is the duty? What is the responsibility that you owe to everybody? I would argue the duty that you owe is not some idea that, okay, well, we're going to contribute to this charity, we're going to do this, and then we're going to use we're going to recycle all these materials, which makes business sense to begin with. It's not valid to argue that. And the second point is that business should not divert resources from what it does best, to take on social causes or environmental causes. I don't always, but sometimes I use Bill Gates as an example. I have no argument with him starting Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. It does all kinds of good works. But Bill Gates, running Microsoft, was contributing more value to humanity than he could ever do by running a charity.
Jaana, can I just ask a question? When you talk about the diversion of resources, the example you've given is giving money to charity. Is that it?
Well, no.
What's that? What?
Yeah, that's this idea. Okay. So if you look at, there's this annual survey of the top socially responsible corporations. And the idea is that, okay, well, we employ the underprivileged or the hardcore unemployed, so that's, social responsibility. Or we use renewable, materials, that would be kind of the environment side of it. So it's not just charity, I'm just using it as a way, but it's kind of like, okay, let's take on the project. Rather than saying, if I'm going to maximize profits, I would want to hire the best people, most competent people, have an efficient production process, create the best products, lowest prices, to people, versus let's have these projects that, will employ the hardcore unemployed or whatever it might be. So that's, diverting resources, like let's, generate. And then, of course, the whole industry that goes on is reporting how good we are in doing all these social kinds of things, the triple bottom line and showing, what we have done in order to get to that, the most socially responsible companies list. So, what I'm saying, you shouldn't be, diverting resources, from finding, or creating as much profit as you can, but of course doing it, ethically. So I'm saying business doesn't owe duties to society, because it is, again, who is it? And typically what it becomes, it is the majority of people, or whomever is the loudest critic who says, well, what about us? We need you to do something for our case. And even if we argue that you had social responsibility, my argument is that you can never do enough, because you can only maximize one objective function, You can't do, the triple bottom line is not feasible. I'm not saying that you should not pay attention or do all those things, like, you know, of course it makes sense. If you don't negotiate with the community, you're not going to do business there at all, so you will do those kind of things. But anyway, so business is an all-duty society, but it has a fiduciary duty to its owners to maximize profits. It's not your money to decide where to spend in terms of social or environmental projects. And important principle, they all respect the individual rights of everybody. You can't violate people's rights, and I'm going to say a little more about that. So how can energy companies succeed? In other words, have enough freedom to do what they do best, to create wealth. And I think this is really important. You need to take the high moral ground versus apologize for the production of fossil fuels, for instance. High moral ground means that you emphasize this is, human flourishing is the standard at what we use. So we are producing something that's tremendously valuable to people. And of course, I mean, there could be all companies that could go and do something, dump the spill somewhere and don't clean up or do whatever. But that's not, high moral ground. It's doing something that's not ethical. And I think it's important to communicate when you do that and also listen to your critics. Because I think that is the biggest thing that, that all companies do. They apologize. Well, we're working on, renewable energy alternatives and apologies that this is so dirty, this is all that we're producing and so forth. And it's also important to listen to what your critics say, because otherwise, how can you address, any of those concerns? And I think it's very important also to commit to acting on moral principle. By that, I mean primarily rationality, adherence to facts, honesty, justice, and trade, which is, trading values for mutual benefit. And of course, individual rights. As lawyers, I think I can talk to you about individual rights, but property rights is crucial in this. So, I hope I didn't get too much longer than that. Here's some resources. I blog weekly about business ethics and related issues, so that's my blog website. And I've written a book on how to be profitable and moral, and I call it a thinking manager's guide to making profits morally. So it's not an academic book. I think it's would be helpful. I also recommend Alex Epstein's The Moral Case for Fossil Fuels. This is a well-researched argument, the benefits of fossil fuels and that. And I haven't read Marshall Rosenberg's Nonviolent Communication myself, but I'm really interested right now doing research on this kind of how do you do dialogical communication versus I'm telling you and I don't care what you think versus having. And I think that's really, really important in mostly when you operate. Okay, so that's all I have to say. I hope it wasn't too shocking.